Kia ora and welcome to Tarmac. I'm Dave.
I'm Matthew, and guess what? My lucky number is 5, and today we've got this behind us, the new Volkswagen ID.5.
Actually, we should check your ID, and actually his lucky number should be 9 because there's a 5 and a 4 ID. But anyway, we've got the 5, so come, let's take a look at this. Now, the ID vehicles for VW are probably the most important step that the brand can do, certainly right now, because it really does thrust them into the electric era, which is, I mean, let's face it, that's where most of the sort of global vehicle network is going now. And when it comes to the ID.4 and the ID.5, there's not much difference outwardly as such, apart from the fact that the ID.4 is more practical in its shape and design and more about the spaciousness of it, and the ID.5, which is what we've got here, is more about the sporty sort of coupe look. But most of the stuff from the sort of B or C pillar forward are very similar, but there are differences, and I'll point them out to you in a moment. New Zealand are bringing in 4 versions of the ID vehicles in the 4 and 5, so there's a Pro and a Pro Plus in both of them. We've actually got the Pro in the ID.5. So the easy way to tell the difference between the 4 and the 5 is this C shape down here around this air vent that sort of helps with the directing the flow around the side. So that's the easy way to tell from the far distance. But what they're trying to say is that this looks more like a face. So as you start to look up on the sort of Pro Pluses, what you've got is right around here in these sort of matrix headlights, LED headlights, are little eyeballs, so you can actually come alive when they see you. So like a I don't know, a dog that's happy to see you, there they are, they sort of light up and away they go. And also, like I said, round here is more about sort of a face and a chin and stuff like that. Under the bonnet here, we'll get to what's actually powering it in a moment, but there is no frunk, so if you're looking to throw your cables under here, it's going to make an awful mess. The ID.4 and the ID.5 both sit on what they're calling the MEB platform, so a platform that's made specifically for electric vehicles on the VW group. In terms of size, we're talking 4.6 meters by 1.62 meters, and which, as I say, is slightly smaller than the ID.4, which is about 1.64 meters, so slightly bigger, particularly around the back here. This one rides on 19-inch feet, and they are pretty aerodynamic, so plenty of sleekness here, and Hankook, whatever it is, rubber, so making sure that there's plenty of rubber going from there. And look at these nice sort of plenty of sort of protection and along the wheel arches. The other thing that we probably should have pointed out is you can tell this is a Pro because this is a Pro badge on the side here. Obviously white mirror caps. The vehicle color itself is we're calling glacier white, and it also contrasts really well with this black roof that isn't panoramic, so if you're trying to look out through there, you're going to have x-ray vision. The doors themselves, they've sort of recessed the door handles, and you sort of flick under the bottom here to open. It's kind of, it's not sort of like a really easy opening thing. It's kind of a little bit almost like a sort of touch button inside. If you get to use it, you'll find out. But also for those with, I don't know, long trousers or stuff like that, I like the actual sills that cover up, so you're not going to get your feet dirty. The only thing I should point out as well, on the front we're talking disc brakes, and on the rear we've got drum brakes. And the reason for that is not just because they're cheapening out by going for drum brakes. By having drum brakes on the back means that you save around about 15 kilometers of range. So actually quite a nice bonus from there. And also, I'm also reliably told that it's good for helping up with the regen, so something else. And also under the back here is where because it's rear wheel drive, where the motor is. Round the rear, what we've got is green tinted heat insulated glass up the back here, and also it comes around from the side, so it looks a bit dark and also helps with the insulation. This vehicle, being the 5, has got the rear spoiler here, and that adds to the drag coefficient, which is actually 0.26, whereas the ID.4 is 0.28. So this is actually a lot better through the air, is slipping through the air anyway. The lights around here, LEDs, and there's a nice light bar that comes all across here. I'll see if I can show you that later. VW badge is in white, so that again, another distinguishing thing for the ID side. ID.5, so if you look, whereas the front has got the C-clamps or whatever it is, the rear here has got the ID.5, so now you know it's a 5. And also, doesn't have a kicker tailgate. I was just trying to build up the tension from there. So, but once you open up here, 549 litres of luggage space, which is 6 litres better than the ID.4, which is actually supposed to be the more spacious one. So it doesn't quite figure, but there you go. And as we all know, beer drinkers out there, 6 litres does make a difference. Anyway, let's look what powers this. Now, normally we would be going under the bonnet, obviously, because that's where engines generally are, but because this is a rear-wheel drive and also battery underneath, we'll just stay back here. As you can see, AC and DC charging, so as you will charge it up to 125 kilowatts, but essentially what we've got is a battery underneath, which gives you, actually it's an 83 kilowatt hour battery, usable 77 kilowatts of battery stuff, and when you're actually using the power, it will churn through a roughly 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So what that gives you is around about 530 kilometers of range, which is pretty good. In terms of the actual motor, what we've got is it's an asynchronous magnetic motor, I'm led to believe, and what that will give you is 150 kilowatts of power and 310 newton meters of torque. So pretty good. 0 to 100 is a roughly 7-ish seconds, so not bad. Anyway, speaking of things that really only last seconds, Matthew's inside and he'll show you what's going on in there.
I guess you'll have to grab some popcorn maybe and sit tight, because there's quite a bit to get through in here, and it's going to take more than 7 seconds, that's for sure. One of the cool, although possibly gimmicky things, is that the pedals actually have a play for the accelerator and a pause for the brake. So a nice little cool touch as we progress into this sort of electric car digital world, if you like. The seats on this VW ID.5 are actually firstly ID embossed, as in the seat backs they are partial leather, partial suede, and feel really nice. There's a nice contrast stitching going through in the white in this model too, to reflect that exterior color. In terms of materials, you do get some softer stuff up the top there, and similarly with the doors too, but for the most part they are scratchy plastics, and quite scratchy, if I must say as well. But it's not all bad in here. The storage spaces are really good. So in the door bins, you do get generous sized door bins, and frankly, they are even big enough for this umbrella to fit in the door bin, absolutely flat. So there you go, taken care of quite easily. In the middle here, you do get plenty of storage as well. Easily enough space for a large phone to fit on the wireless charging pad. There is a cup holder in here, and 2 cup holders here, and the section is actually removable, so you can take this with you if you do want to do so, just like that. How about that? What it does is reveal another huge storage compartment here, where there's also room for your key, and of course it's a floating center console type thing, so you do get a bit of space underneath as well for practicality's sake. Now, the infotainment screen in the middle is called the Ready to Discover Max infotainment, and that's 2 as in the number 2 as opposed to TO, because, well, of course it is, right? The screen itself, well, that's quite a large unit and has pretty much, as you'd expect, the Volkswagen software in it. So this is the home screen layout, where you have a shortcut for your audio input there, and as you saw me bring my hand closer to it, it lit up with more menus and options, of course, because that's a typical Volkswagen infotainment party trick. Now, what I really want to draw your eye to is firstly this right side shortcut navigation. there's 3 components to it. The first one is over there, it says number 2, and that's not alluding to either toilet brakes or the infotainment system name. It's actually, click on it and it'll give you notifications that are pending up there. So it does show you how many are left for you to sort of review. Below that is the symbol for the app tray, and if you click on that, you're presented with this screen here, which has, as you'd expect from Volkswagen, all of the shortcuts in their typical software. Note also the vehicle there pays homage to the Volkswagen ID design language as opposed to like the Golf or something like that. At the bottom there is the background button, and if you click on that, you're presented with this screen. And the big thing here is you do actually have the color option of 30 different colors for your LED ambient lighting in the cabin, and 2 different colorways that you can have. So VW have really thought this through in terms of the personalization in here. Going back to the same app tray, you swipe right and you get presented with the aircon menu, the settings, and driver assist. Now, what I really want to draw your attention to in terms of the driver assist is this ID.5 has a forward collision warning, which essentially keeps an eye on pedestrians, on cyclists which are off the road, but keeps an eye on them in case they do cross into your path on the road. The car will warn you as quickly as possible and then apply the brakes for you as well if you do not do so in time. So it's really hyper intelligent, if you like, compared to forward collision warning systems of old. With the air conditioning, you do get heated seats for both driver and passenger up front, as well as a heated steering wheel, and then of course the AC is simple enough to use on here. Below that, you do have the sort of, I guess, touch bar, which has caused a lot of issues for VW owners in the past, and it is still present here, although better labeled, I must admit, than before. Now, in front of the driver here, firstly, the steering wheel is covered in leather, it's heated as well, and of course you've got those infamous Volkswagen touch capacitive buttons on here. On the right side, of course, they control the volume, and you have the view button which controls that screen, which I'll get to in a second. On the left side, you've got your adaptive cruise controls there, and of course your mode selector for the ACC or speed limit system. Now, going back to the view button there, if I scroll left there, or right rather, you can see there it brings up the adaptive cruise control menu, which is on the left, and then on the top there you get a little indicator of what the drive mode is. So the checkered flag being the fact that it is in sport mode right now, and then as you change the modes, that'll change accordingly. If I scroll to the left, you'll see the main sort of information pop up there again. So my speed, my gear, and then of course the battery percentage and actual range. And then if I do have the map on, it'll show up on this side of the screen too. Now, you might be wondering where the gear selector is, because you didn't see it in the middle when I reviewed that. And well, that's because it's actually on here. So you can see the controls, or a guide rather, of it over there. So you turn it right or forward for drive, and then left or backwards for reverse. And it's something to get used to, but it is, I guess, simply integrated into this. Piano black, of course, so it will attract lots of fingerprints, but quite easy to clean, just like so. Now, the big question with the back of the ID.5 is in terms of space. Remember, this is being built as a 100% electric coupe SUV. Now, normally when those two things meet, it means that if you're a tall person sitting in the back seat, it's probably not going to end so well for you. But in the back of the ID.5, I mean, plenty of headroom for me. Even somebody taller than me, like the man behind the camera there, Harry, well, he had no issue with the headroom either. And well, space is a premium in here, actually. You could easily fit 2 people, 2 full-size adults, and a third slightly smaller person in the middle. In a way, that's helped a lot by the fact that there's no central tunnel. It's just a completely flat floor, and makes for very comfortable seating for even the person in the middle. If you don't have a person in the middle, then you can have a armrest that folds down, or a ski hatch as well that comes all the way down and leads straight through to the boot. The other interesting thing is, yes, there's ISOFIX points and top tethers for both of these seats in the back here, but the passenger in the front there also has a top tether point and ISOFIX points in the front. Do note though, however, that the driver's seat does not have any top tether points or ISOFIX points either, for obvious reasons, hopefully. Anyway, enough of the backseat stuff. The ID badge in the middle there is telling me that it's probably time to take this for a drive.
All right, so a couple of good things before we set off. This is what Volkswagen are basically calling a twist and go. So the moment you sit your rear end on the driver's seat, the car is ready to go. And then, as Matthew's pointed out, just a quick twist forward and you are off. Now we've managed to get nice wet weather, which is nice. And of course, with an EV means that traction's really good and you don't really have to worry about things as far as where weather goes or worried about anything when it comes to cornering. And this vehicle does corner very well. I'll get to more of that in a minute. But first impressions, it actually feels pretty nimble.
And nimble, I guess, in a way is a surprise, because despite the fact that this is a single motor rear-wheel drive EV, it weighs in at over 2 tons, so you know that nimble aspect. 2.5 tons, yes, as Dave pointed out with him in it. It is quite a surprise for it to be this nimble, to be honest.
And it is, I mean, it is quite hot as far as, I think the looks are good. I like the shape. Let me get to the chassis, which is very strong. And also what VW have done with the ID is moved the steering rack over the other side of the wheels. So essentially it does offer a little bit of a different feel when it comes to cornering and handling. So it is a better handling vehicle.
It is also quite tall, as you saw, and you can see Harry in the back there with perfect amount of headroom actually, which is the big surprise from this ID.5 coupe SUV. And just the feeling of space, I think, is there is a huge amount of it in here, and not just headroom but also shoulder room, the width of the car, the height, everything it's quite a large car in general, despite the fact that its styling may not give it away to be so.
In terms of visibility, big windscreen, big door mirrors, so there's plenty there. Rear view is slightly compromised, especially when you got the spoiler across the back. I like the sort of armrest. I think that's really cool and makes me feel very sort of armchair thing. So really suits my armchair sportsman side of things. Thing that is a bit of a issue is the mirrors, or the windows. So you've only got 2 window openers, so if you want to open the back ones you have to hold down and push the thing on the side here that then pops up rear, and then you can adjust the backs and then flip that again and then use those buttons again. So I don't know why they've gone for 2 buttons rather than 4 buttons, but I don't know, maybe it's another thing that I need to catch up, right?
And speaking of continuing on that line of only having 2 window switches, I can't help but feel that VW have cheaped out a bit in places where they really shouldn't have, in terms of the feel and you know, the touch points of the car. Like on the door, for example, you do get that top layer of soft materials, but below that everything is scratchy plastic essentially. Same thing with the dashboard as well, and it's not a great feel considering that even this Pro model is on that 80 grand mark, and then you've got the Pro Plus, which is more than 90,000 here in New Zealand, and it doesn't even have an electronic tailgate as well on either model. So another thing that's quite a surprise at that price point.
But speaking of the dashboard, is this light bar goes across the front here, and that changes color depending on what's going on. So if you're about to have a crash, or if I want to alert something, it will flash up red, which is cool. Or if I want to speak to the Hey ID, it flashes up and shows me who's talking from one side, so it flashes across from there. So I think there's green, white, and obviously red that have different associations with different things. I think it's kind of cool. Oh, So please wait. Hey ID. I'm hot.
Sure, it will get cooler at the front right shortly.
It couldn't be any cooler with me being here.
Also, like the touch capacitive buttons, I have to say it's probably me getting more used to them as time has gone on, but they are still a bit fiddly to use, and a little sort of mistouch of the buttons can, you know, change the channel of the radio and stuff like that when you don't intend to. So those are the side effects of it. But at the same time, having things like heated seats, heated steering wheel, you know, the light colors, all of that stuff make it still a sort of fun and personal experience with the car, which I think is something that VW have been going for with the ID series.
Another couple of things, it will tow around about a ton, so not bad. So it's, you know, half its body weight you will tow, which is more than I can lift, that's for sure. Also, when it comes to brake regen, you can flick forward. So if you push forward, it will go from drive, which tends to flow really nicely, and then turn on the B monitor, which obviously does the more brake regen. And it's not really a one-touch drive, but it does bring you to a sort of, not a standstill, but it just pulls you up quite well. And in terms of range, so far it's been really good. I will give a full report on how much range we've got in the end, but it's so far we're doing roughly, well, actually 18 kilowatt hours, so not far off the 16 that is written.
Absolutely, and I think certainly having, firstly, only one motor for driving the wheels helps with that, and the other thing is having smaller wheels, if you like, or more rubber rather than, you know, alloys. This is riding on 19s and plenty of rubber, but the profile is not too wide, helping that efficiency side of things quite a bit.
It does lack a little bit of oomph, but then if you are going for the oomph that you want, then there is a GTX model on its way, and that's got two motors and I know all the thrills with it, I guess. So there you have it, the new Volkswagen ID series, which is basically the ID.4 and ID.5. There are other ID.3 color numbers coming out, but the ID.5 coupe styling, so sportiness, actually with a lot of practicality and so much range. I mean, 530 kilometers of range, even if it comes close to that, which I will work out, is just amazing. And nice handling. Love the way that it steers as far as having that front thing, and a lovely balance to it as well. 50-50 is what they're saying, and it feels that way in the corners.
It's drives well and has certainly got more than enough room for a family's needs in here, along with all the practicality that a family might require. So it is quite sensible in that sense too.
You just don't like the scratchiness. God, you're so difficult to please. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Auf Wiedersehen.